I want listeners to better understand psychology, and I want to get your filter of psychology. So the question I have first for you is, what is psychology, and what's the value of psychology in the world?
Okay, I could give you the textbook definition of psychology, which my
Please don't.
psychology professor had us drill and memorize for the exam, and I'm not going to do that because the answer is boring. It's the study of the I haven't even memorized it because it's just that boring. It's the apparati of the mind, the processes of the mind, yada yada. To me, and not just to me, but to people who take these things seriously, who take the inner world seriously, psychology is a study of that. It's a study of the inner world, your inner world that everybody has. And what's so strange to me is that I used to be so apprehensive and resistant towards these ideas relating to the inner, the psyche. I wouldn't use the word woo-woo to describe all this stuff. Because my mom, not just because my mom, I mean, shout outs to my mom, I love her to death. My mom would want me to meditate, and she wanted me to get more in touch with my spiritual side. And I was just this angsty teenager, and I thought all of that was just nonsense.
Yeah.
Really, I wanted nothing whatsoever to do with anything that had to do with my inner self, my consciousness. I didn't even know what a consciousness was. I thought it was just some grandiose thing. I wanted nothing to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tie this short life story into your point as well. It wasn't until I discovered Jordan Peterson's work, honestly, and I might get people have told me that I sound so much like him because I read a lot of the stuff that he's read, Jung and Nietzsche. Like, he's very iconic for talking about Jung and Nietzsche. I discovered his YouTube videos, the classic one about cleaning your room, and he was talking about Nietzsche and Jung, and that's when things started clicking, and I started applying these things in my own life. And what psychology really teaches you is it's okay to experience difficulties. You're supposed to experience difficulties in your life. There isn't one umbrella philosophy that is going to just make you happier. And what I like about Jung so much, and you really wanted to get into Jung with me as well, I really enjoy studying the kind of psychology that articulates why it is we need difficulties in our lives. And you and I have already discussed Brave New World and that wonderful scene with the savage and the controller, about how the controller, spoilers if you haven't read this book, why haven't you read it yet? Why the controller why it was so bad for the controller, Mustafa Mon, to make everything easy. Mm. And so psychology to me is the study of how one can better themselves through not merely through coping with the built-in difficulties of life itself. You don't have to search very far to find something difficult. You already come into this world predisposed to all of your inborn psychological setbacks built into you. And there's a history to that as well, because you have to deal with the genes you've inherited from your parents and your environment and all sorts of horrible things to deal with. You come with these limitations. So why is psychology so important to study and understand? It isn't so that you can trick your friends into thinking that you can read their minds and sometimes get this like, oh, psychology, tell me a cool trick. Can you what am I thinking about right now? Or why do people behave this way?
Yeah.
You study psychology to learn more about yourself. And it's not selfish at all. It's not selfish. You introspect and you learn more about yourself, not because you're so infatuated with yourself and you're such a narcissist, but because you want to understand your own limitations and what those limitations are. And those limitations won't necessarily ever go away. They will always be there. And it's with those limitations that you actually become a better person, because you're able to you want to do awesome things in life despite those limitations. And you need that struggle. It's the Bruce Lee thing. Pray not for an easy life, but the strength to endure a difficult one, which is the total counter thesis of the controller's philosophy of Brave New World. Yeah. So in short, to summarize, I study psychology so that I could better understand myself. And the study of psychology has also led me to other philosophical forms of thought, religious modes of thought, like the Tao Te Ching. And I'm reading the Bhagavad Gita right now as well. And there's all sorts of crossroads between religious texts and what you've learned in psychology, especially
How
with